So hi guys. So in this video we are going to implement the missile types. Just like we did with the invaders that have different types and different costumes and animations, we are going to do the same for the missiles. And we are also missing destroying the missile when it touches the player. So we are also going to add that. Right now we are not going to be worried about destroying the player. We'll make that on a video about the losing condition. So far we are only destroying the missile. But before that, you are going to fix a problem that I left on the last video, and I forgot to do it, which was we had a problem. I don't know if you remember, but we had a problem where missiles were coming from like different positions all around the screen. So the invaders could be like moving on this place, and the missiles were coming from this side. So at the time, I didn't realize what was the problem, but basically it was really simple. What was happening is that we are using the lists to add the positions of the invaders at the invader ID, and we had two problems. So first of all, we are not resetting the variable of the invader ID, which means that each time we ran the program, the invader ID would continue incrementing. So the first time it would go up to 55, then to 110, then to 165, and so forth. And we are also not clearing or emptying the lists. So we would add, the first time we run the list would go up to 55 in length, then to 110, then 165. And the problem was that the positions that let's say that the first time we ran, the list would fill up to 55, would have like some values of positions, and then we would stop the game. Those positions would be stored in those values up to 55. Then we start again, and we go from 55 to 110. And we had some new positions. But when we are choosing a position for the missile, we were considering all of them. So from position 1 to 110, which would mean that we were using positions that were not actually from this game, but from the last time we ran the game. So basically, what we need here to solve this problem is to set the invader ID to 0. This is at the beginning of the invader sprite. When we click the green flag, we are going to set the invader ID to 0. So this is like a really important rule that we always need to try to remember, is that when we are using variables, you almost always need to reset the variable value at the beginning of the game. So always remember, if you create a variable and you change the variable value throughout the game, you always need to have a place where you need to reset the variable to the original value. And we are also going to drag these blocks from the variable section, the delete all invaders position X and delete all invaders position Y. What this does is basically it clears the list so they start again from 0. And after we do this, it's all working okay. So this was a fix that we can already implement. And now we can go to implement the missile types. So let's go to the sprite missile. Here we are choosing the position, everything. So what we are going to do now is implement the missile type. Just like we did with the invaders, we are going to assign a missile type to each clone that we create. In this case, we are going to be assigning a random missile type. So each time we create a new missile, it's going to have a random type. And we can have 3 different types. So if we go here to the costumes, we can have we have the missile fast, and we have the missile slow, and the missile wiggly. From what I read in the documentation, the wiggly is the most powerful one. But in this case, we are not going to be worried about if it's powerful or not. We are only going to be worried about the speed of the missile. So we're going to have 3 different types of missiles, and each one of them is going to have a different speed value. So the slow is going to be the slowest one, then we have the fast, and then we have the wiggly one, which is the faster. We are going to implement this way. And so I already talked about 2 things that we need so far. We need a missile type and we need a missile speed. And these are both variables that we need to create. So let's start by creating these 2 variables and make a variable. And let's start by creating the missile type. And the missile type is a variable for this sprite only, which means that each sprite is going to have its own variable, its own variable value. Not invader, sorry, missile type for the sprite only, and then we create the, which one was the other one? The missile speed. Missile speed for this sprite only, because each clone has its own value for this variable. So we have the missile type and the missile speed, and now we are going to use these variables. We can already use the missile speed. We can use it here. Instead of changing y by -5, we can actually already use the missile speed. So let's just change this at the moment. We can set the missile speed here at the beginning when we start as a clone, and I'm going to set it as -5. And we can drag the missile speed here. And then we are going to assign a real value to this missile speed according to the missile type. But we can leave it like this so far. And now what we need to do is start dealing with the costumes for the missile type. So the first thing we are going to do is to assign a random missile type when we create the clone of the missile. So let's drag a new, not here, here. When I start as a clone block, and it's here where we are going to assign the missile type. So let's go to the costumes, and basically in the costumes what we have is that the first missile type is going to start with the costume number 1, the second missile type is going to start with the costume number 5, and the third missile type is going to start with the costume number 9. So basically, I'm going to put this here. You know that I like to do this kind of thing. So 1, 5, and 9. These are the initial costumes of each one of the missile types. And what we can see here is that, well, actually, just to make a distinction between the invader types. In the invader types, we actually assigned invader type number 1, number 2, and number 3. Here, we are going to use a different approach, which is we are going to set the missile type to the default costume that they use. So we're going to have the missile type number 1, the missile type number 5, and the missile type number 9. And so when we pick a random value, when we pick a random missile type, we are going to be using these values. And what we can see here is that, okay, we can start from 1, and then from 1 to 5, and from 5 to 9, basically what we are doing here is that we are adding the value of 4. So 1 plus 4, we have 5, and 5 plus 4, we have 9. And basically, the math that we need to do to get one of these values is, this one is 1, the first missile type is 1 plus, put here, plus 4 times 0, something like this. This one would be 1 plus 4 times 1, and this one would be 1 plus 4 times 2. So this is the method we need to get a missile type. Since we want a random missile type, basically what we need to do is to add 1 plus 4 times a random value between 0 and 2. And so we have a random missile type. This math will result in a number of 1, number 5, or number 9. So let's create this here. And so when we start as a clone, we are going to set the missile type to a random value according to the operation that I just showed you. And so basically what we have is that we start always with number 1. So we have number 1 plus, and here we have 4 times, and we pick a random value between 0 and 2. And this is going to get us a random missile type. So we get a random value between 0 and 2, we multiply it by 4 and add it to 1. So we have the number 1, number 5, or number 9. And these are the missile types that we are going to use. So now we have a missile type. And now that we have a missile type, we need to assign the initial costume that the missile is going to use. So we can use the actual variable of the missile type, because the missile type is actually the same value that the costume of the initial costume. So we can say that we are going to switch the costume to the value that we have on the missile type. Okay, here. So we have the number, we have the missile type, we switch the costume, so we switch the initial costume, and now we can use the missile type to set the speed. So we are going to use the value of the missile type to change the speed, and here we were using the speed here of -5, so we will be using maybe the -5 is like the fastest one. Then we have like -3 and -2 for the slower one. And so what we need to do here is to create a condition. So no, not if, sorry, because we have like 3 conditions, and this is something that Scratch is missing, but I understand why. In the programming languages, you usually have an if-else condition, but you can also have an if-else-if condition, if-else-if-else, which means that we could use something like if missile type is equal to 1, do something else. If missile type is equal to 5, do another thing, else do another thing, and we could add different else-if conditions. Unfortunately, Scratch doesn't have that ability, so we only have the if-else condition. So basically, what we need to do when we have more than one condition, I mean, yeah, more than 2 different options. In this case, we have 3. We need to add an if-then else condition, and inside the else condition, we add another one. So we do something like this, and now if we are comparing the missile type, so if the missile type, where is it? If the missile type, equals 1, which means that is, oh, it's not the slowest one because I made a mistake when I was importing the costumes. So actually, the number 1 is not the slowest one, but the intermediate one. But it's okay. I mean, we could just drag the costumes, or we can just change the value here. We just need to be aware of that. So if the missile type is equal to 1, which means that is the fast missile, is the intermediate one in terms of speed, we are going to set the missile speed to, what did I say before, -3, which is like the intermediate value. So this is the first condition, and now in the else condition, we need to add another if-else, and we can copy this one. So if missile type is equal to 5, which is the second type, which is this one, and is a slow one, we are going to set the missile speed to -2. And if it's not 1 or 5, it means that it is the wiggly one, which is a faster one, and we're going to set to -5. So now we have the missile type. The missile speed. Now we have the missile speed. Actually, we don't need this block here. I don't know why I added before. We don't need it here because when I start as a clone, the missile speed will start at 0, but this also starts, and then the missile speed will get the value from these blocks. So we set the missile type, we switch a costume, we set the speed of the missile, and now, now what we are missing is animating the missile. So each missile type has four frames, from this one 1 to 4. I mean, this one 5 to 8, and the other one 9 to 12. The 13 is the explosion of the missile. And so now we need to add the animation, or to make the cycle between all these frames. So we need a forever block. And now inside we are going to do something really simple, just similar to the invader animation. We're going to start on the default frame, we're going to increment the frame until we reach the last one for that missile type, and then come back to the first one. And like I said before, what we have here is that the missile types, let me just copy this one. So the first one starts at 1 and ends at 4. 1 ends at 4. This one starts at 5, ends at 8, and this one starts at 9 and ends at 12. So you can see that we have a difference of 3 between between the first and the last frame, and that's what we are going to use for the condition. So when the costume number is equal to the missile type plus 3, it means that we are on the last frame, and so we should go back to the first one. Otherwise, we are just going to keep incrementing the costume. So we can do that here, not this one, the if else once again. And so if it's not this that we need, but not the missile type, but it's the costume number, which is here. So if the costume number is equal to, and now we cannot use a static value, we need to use the missile type, which is the it corresponds to the default costume number. So if the costume number is equal to the missile type plus 3, it means that we are on the last costume. So we need to go back to the first one. So we need to change. We can copy from this one. Oh no, from this one it's going to bring the whole sequence of blocks. So I'm just going to drag from this one. So we can change this again to the missile type. So when we reach the last frame, it goes back to the initial one. Otherwise, it's just going to increment the costume. So next costume. And yes, and yeah, just like we did with the invaders, and you know that when you are switching costumes, you need to add a time delay between the costumes so that you can actually see what's happening. So we are going to add a time delay at the end of this of 0.2 seconds. This is it. So when I start as a clone, blah blah blah. Yes, yeah. Let's just try it. I'm gonna mute this tab because I don't want to hear the music. Let's see. Okay, we have the missiles. Yeah, and they are all animated. We have different types of missiles with different speeds, and the animation is running. So that's exactly what we want. Yeah, perfect. And now the only thing we are missing for the missiles, and like I said, we are not gonna worry about destroying the player at this time. We are going to do that on a future video. So what we are missing now is destroying the missile when it hits the player, and we are going to do the same as we did with the lasers and the invaders. I mean, each one of them is gonna detect a collision with the other one and do its own thing. So like we did with the laser and invader, when the laser detects the invader, the laser destroys itself, and when the invader detects the laser, it destroys itself. We are going to do the same with the missile. But so far, we are only going to deal with the missile part. So when the missile detects a collision with the player, it destroys. And we already have the block of code that deals with destroying the clone, so we only need to add the condition here. So we were destroying the missile when the position was less than minus 170, which means that the missile was at the bottom of the screen. So we need to add a condition, and in this case it is an OR operation because we are going to destroy the missile if the position is less than minus 170 or if it's touching the player. So we have this one here, and for touching the player, we go to the sensing category and we have the touching, not the mouse pointer, but touching the player. And we can add this here. Now let me see if I can catch some missiles. Let me see. Yes, it's destroying when it touches the player. And the player is not destroying, but we'll deal with that later. And yeah, this is it about the invader missiles. This was what we were missing. And in the next video, we are going to start implementing the bunkers. So as you know, the game has like the bunkers where the player can take cover behind them, and we are going to implement those bunkers in the next video. So I'll see you there. Thank you.